Okay, so I'm going to attempt to explain to you the 9/11 event and how it relates to the entire field of the 14 Patala Lokas in the Hindu lore. There are 7 levels above Earth and seven levels below. And the middle is the middle pillar. Okay, so Middle Earth is where the actual gateway or the door to 0 point is, which is the 9/11 event, when the two twin towers, which is the 7 heavens above and the 7 below, meet at the Earth. They meet at the center. So you have the negative pillar, which represents the 7 layers below, the 7 layers below are Binah, which is the feminine pillar, and she's the one that's crawling out of the, out of Sheol, which is the lower level, 7 level, rings. She's crawling up to meet the Earth, okay? So, like, her crawling out of the pit, basically, that's the, inverted, black tree that you see her on the, screen. She is Binah of the black tree, okay? So the Binah, or the feminine, Sethroth, or character of the black tree, is climbing up to meet in the center here at the Earth, okay? And then the masculine represents the 7 above, and this is the false heaven, right? This is the heaven that everybody focuses on, the sky or whatever, or the masculine principle. That's why it's so dominant in our belief system, in our religious structures. It's like very heavily masculine oriented, because this isn't where the real keystone is, okay? The real keystone, or the real gateway, is actually on the Earth. The Earth itself is the middle pillar that's projecting out the left and the right pillar, okay? So the left and the right pillar represent -0 or -1 and +1. Okay, +1 and all of the positive numbers after that to infinity represents the masculine half of the Taurus field. The Taurus field's like a big apple, and the central pillar is what's projecting these two principles of negative and positive out, okay? And so, the masculine is falling from the heavens. So this is the morning star Lucifer. The morning star Lucifer is falling from his position of Chokmah up here. He's falling down to meet the middle pillar. And then the other character, the 3 that I talk about, the Minaj, this is the Minaj, or the Manhattan Project, the Trinity test. The Trinity test was the first nuclear bomb that was dropped on July 16th, 1945. In Manhattan, New York, 9/11, the Twin Towers, this is all connected, okay? And so, what happens is, when these 3 forces of nature meet, because I talk about the forces of nature a lot, they meet as a menage a trois, okay? And it collapses the entire Taurus field back into the center point here, which is the Earth, Middle Earth. And the Middle Earth represents Lucifer, okay? Lucifer trapped in the hangman, or trapped in the binds between the two binary bipolar system. This is the bi-bull system, the 2 bulls, the Red Bull symbol with the 2 bulls crashing into each other, a Wall Street a market crash, like all this stuff is connected to this event happening, right? And so, the feminine on the other side, on the sitra achra, has to climb up to meet the middle pillar, and the masculine has to fall down, okay? He falls down with the knowledge of Chokmah. She falls down, she climbs up from the knowledge of Binah. And who's doing this is the gathering in the middle and the center pillar, which is the Alpha and the Omega, okay? The Alpha and Omega is the 10th Sephiroth, which is shared between both the masculine and the feminine. This was what the whole fight in the beginning of the story within this dream. The fight was about the two principles sharing the crown. They didn't want to share the crown. Okay, the crown is the earth. Okay, the crown is also the kingdom, which is Malchut. So the crown and the kingdom, Malchut and Keter, of the middle pillar. The real middle pillar is in the center between the two, okay? The masculine and the feminine, both the negative and the positive pillar, both have their own crown. They have their own Keter on their tree, but it's an incomplete Keter, okay? It's only completed through Malchut, through the feminine climbing out a Sheol and the masculine falling down from his high place, which is why many men will refuse to do so, because they do not want to fall down from their high place. That this the patriarchal shit, you know, like all of that. They don't want to fall down to their high place to actually receive the kingdom, because they're too dumb to recognize. They don't see the diamond in the rough. They don't see the lamp. You know, Aladdin's lamp, when he first saw it, he didn't see how this was something that, why they wanted him to steal this, because it was just this regular lamp. It was just a regular looking lamp. It wasn't anything special on the outside or anything like that. And this is kind of like the idea of the Grail and the search for the Grail and how people are searching for something specific, but it's actually something completely different than what they think, right? It's a person acting as the function of this story, or doing the work to become the function of this story, to its completion, right? The great work. And so sometimes I get too focused on just one tree, and I realize I have to be more holistic and include the feminine tree as well, because that's also a part of it. So sometimes I keep forgetting to incorporate the feminine tree, as I keep forgetting about the feminine, the evening star, which represents this black tree right here, okay? The evening star represents, the evening star represents, Binah, that she fell into the pit, and the masculine got high off of his own hubris, so he's up in the clouds and she's down below, and then the middle pillar is the crown. Now, there's the story that I'm getting, through just a lot of inspiration from things around me and people around me that I know and stuff like that have led me to this conclusion that, about the real story of, like, how we got here and how this all transpired within the dream anyway. Not the story outside of this place, but the world history of this dream itself, right? Because there's an entire separate story once you realize that this is just a dream. But the origin or the storyline within the dream is of this. It's just like what I had explained before about how there was an allegory in the Talmud between the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon were both equal, sharing. This is like these two pillars here. They were sharing the responsibility of the crown and the kingdom, which is this Middle Earth that they're both standing on and sharing here. And they got into a fight. It was the battle of the sexes. They got into a fight, and they didn't want to share the middle pillar anymore. So the feminine was the first to rebel against the masculines, and that's where the whole story of Atlantis came. And in my opinion, Atlantis was it was a nation or a continent that was formed by women who had got tired of sharing the spotlight with the men, okay? And this also has to do with Adam and Eve and Lucifer, okay? There was some kind of thing between the three of them as well that has some type of overlay between the, I guess the relationship between, or the correlation between the two. There's a correlation between that. They didn't want to share a relationship between the two, or the three. So the feminine decided to, like, I guess, impose their will onto the masculines, right? And for a while, the world was ruled by women, and the women were very, very, they were very authoritarian, they were very harsh, they were just as bad as the men are now. And the men almost destroyed the planet trying to break away from them, trying to escape their tyranny and their slavery. And that's where the story of the flood happened. I think they might have nuked Atlantis, and something about there being a big flood, the island or the continent or whatever it was, it sunk, okay, and it almost destroyed everything. And this is how all of the religion started, was through this cataclysm, because people slowly forgot and they started making their own separate stories of the beginning, and then the culture and all of that, the adaptation of everybody splitting up and creating their own religions and their own languages and stuff, created this confusion, all right, up to what actually really happened in the past. But in the past, yes, it was the women, and then the men have this internalized fear of what happened to them when the Bulldike women took over, because I think it had something to do with the feminine. I don't know if it's like about her literally wanting to be a lesbian, or just not wanting to be around men anymore, just not liking men. Or maybe it got to the point where, women were really starting to resent and hate men or something, or they were greedy and they didn't want to share Malchut, which represents the daughter, okay, until they got into this big fight about the earth and dominion over it and all of this and that, right? And, so basically it was just like a continent or a nation that of no men allowed, or they weren't, and then the women were like pretty much dominating over the whole earth. And, some of the men gathered up like a resistance, and they fought the women, and they used some of the technology that the women had created against them, because we had technology that was far more advanced than this before, I believe. And that's what led to us literally not knowing our history or origin, because of this huge cataclysmic event between the men and the women. And then the men always subconsciously, to this day, are in deep fear of the women taking over again, right? Because of that subconscious, it's almost like it's ingrained in their DNA, because all of your memory is inherited. So you inherit fears, you inherit traits, you inherit all these things based off of memory, right? And so that's why I think there was never really any true reconciling between the two, up until now, up until this point. What I was missing for a long time was I was only focusing on one of the trees when I was supposed to be focusing at both of them as a whole, and then looking at the earth as the middle pillar, okay? The middle pillar isn't just one of the trees. It's what the masculine and the feminine, which represent the two pillars between the Middle Earth, are standing on, okay? And so, yeah, that's just what I wanted to explain. So I hope I explained it well enough. Right here. Then this is what includes the masculine and the feminine. And these are the realms, or the chakras, that both the masculine and the feminine have to overcome on both their sides. So the masculine has to humble himself and fall down, and the feminine has to rise and climb up to meet Lucifer, the light bringer, or the gateway door. Everybody gets focused on the gateway door being like up in the sky or something like that. That's just simply the masculine pillar. But the masculine pillar is the Chokmah of the masculine pillar falls down and then literally goes down into the feminine pillar, to the Sheol. He goes down. He goes to earth, and then he goes down under into the seven lowers to retrieve Binah, okay? So that she can go up to the okay, which is the gateway, which is the celestial gateway, okay? It's not up in the sky, it's not just the masculine pillar, okay? All right.